YouTube. It's your boy Yo Me. And yeah, man, if you don't see me with the purple Dewey and the shades on, you know something wrong. But to my few subscribers out there, a few people that watch me, I apologize. I haven't been um uploading, man. I just been busy. Uh but yeah, I'm back. Hope y'all still been safe. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all might want me to react to. But yeah, I was looking on YouTube today and I saw Tierzoo uploaded, so we gotta react to that, man. But without further ado, let's get into it. Are centipedes OP? Are centipedes OP? I don't like centipedes that much, but I do know they're venomous, poisonous, venomous. I think they're venomous, but I don't really like centipedes that much.
Centipedes are without a doubt one of the most terrifying builds in the entire game.
That's true though. They
They're
look
also one of the
scary
oldest.
as.
They're part of an ancient lineage called myriapods, which were the first builds to ever unlock the ability to breathe air.
Okay.
Way back during the Silurian expansion. Their many legs and venomous fangs make for a fearsome display for any player looking to challenge them in combat. But has their ancient strategy held up in the face of the immense power creep the game has seen? Is having dozens upon dozens of legs much of an improvement over just having a few? Let's take a closer look at the stats and abilities of
Damn,
centipedes
there's
and
some ugly
millipedes, and ultimately decide
mother
where they
effers,
fall
I
on a tier
swear.
list. First,
Are
let's take a look at
myriads
their
OP?
stats and abilities. And for
Myriapods.
this section, we'll show both the centipede and millipede base stats.
Okay.
Both centipedes and millipedes have solid defensive stats. They're both part of the arthropod faction and inherit the exoskeletal armor perk, granting them dramatically higher base defense compared to similarly sized soft-bodied invertebrates, such as slugs or velvet worms. Their chitinous exoskeleton can deflect most basic attacks from players at or below their weight class.
Yeah, it's like one of the ones where you gotta flip over like a turtle or something. You not really go be able to do too much damage from the front.
There is a meaningful difference between the two on this front, though. Millipedes have interlocking articulated plates, leaving essentially zero gaps in their armor, other than the underside where all their leg joints are. Centipedes, on the other hand, do have gaps in their armor, particularly in between segments on their sides between their legs. Unlike millipedes, which have their leg joints attached on their underside, centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede.
On the side, okay. I never knew this.
This results in a much higher defense stat for millipedes. But the trade-off is pretty obvious when you look at their other major difference, their mobility stat. Millipedes have a speed stat that is only slightly higher than that of a snail.
Dang, millipedes are that slow? Thought they were faster than that.
Which is incredibly low given that snails don't even have legs.
Yeah,
Centipedes,
what?
with their less restrictive armor, are some of the quickest moving arthropods in the game, able to quickly weave in and around cover and scale walls in record time. Their quick, twitchy movement
I'm not gonna lie, that
makes them tough
scared
to
me.
pin down, and because of their flat shape, they have a very easy time running for cover if threatened by a player in a higher weight class. But of course, the primary reason they're invested in a higher movement speed is because it synergizes well with the last major difference they have for millipedes.
They got venom,
power
right?
Stat.
Oh,
Millipedes
power.
have no offensive moves at all. When
Makes
confronted
sense.
with an adversary,
Yeah,
millipedes
it's
will
over.
respond by attempting to lock down their defenses even more tightly than they already are, in hopes that the aggressive player will simply give up. They'll curl up into a ball in order to guard their already small number of weak points, and may also begin secreting noxious and or toxic chemicals to dissuade persistent predators from risking poison damage. Centipedes may attempt to curl and take some hits, but more often than not,
That's a
they'll opt
huge
to
centipede
either
right
flee
there.
or rely on their powerful offense to substitute for their lackluster defense. The centipede's jaws, which are really their two front legs, have been modified into hypodermic daggers, able to pierce armor and inflict venom to deal devastating damage. The rest of their stats are pretty similar, as most myriapods sport fairly generic mid-level camo, nothing too impressive, but enough to beat the average player's passive
Yeah, they got
perceptions
decent camo. I mean, they're what, red and black?
as long as they remain motionless. Both centipedes and millipedes sometimes sport vibrant aposematic coloration as well, forgoing stealth and replacing it with intimidation, flexing how toxic their poison or venom is. And as a fairly ancestral lineage of arthropods, it's no surprise their intelligence stat is quite low, as they were introduced to the game during a time before intelligence builds were even remotely viable.
Bruh, so they just never even evolved intelligence because nobody was intelligent back then. So Centipede, bro, the world in general is just so old, man. There's so much stuff we don't know about it that we'll never know for sure, but it's just crazy.
Viable, and have opted to refine their core strategy rather than respec into a higher intelligence build. Unfortunately, this locks them out of the higher level perception perks like binocular vision and compound eyes, forcing them to mainly rely on their most basic options for detecting enemies, like simple eyes, perception, and tremor sense. As far as other unique abilities go, myriapods don't have all that much. This is a little unfair because when they were first patched into the game, their most important unique ability was their ability to breathe on dry land. However,
now everybody can breathe on land, so you're fried.
One of the most common abilities in the game, making myriapods much less unique and honestly a bit obsolete. One other special
terrible meta pick
is auto mimicry. It is
if you a player that runs a centipede or millipede build, you're just one of the ones that don't care about your gameplay. I'm not gonna lie.
Quite difficult to tell at a glance which end of a centipede is the head, as their back end also looks almost identical. In fact, in some ways, the back end even functions as a head, as it also has highly sensitive structures similar to antennae. The reason this matters is that the best way to disable and defeat a centipede is to attack its head first, before it has a chance to respond. If an attacking player has a 50% chance to accidentally attack the wrong end, that gives centipedes a chance to counterattack for massive damage. Or
that's a good strategy, I cannot lie.
So those are the base stats and abilities of the myriapod. But how do these traits actually stack up against the current meta?
Then there's no way they're OP. I mean, look at these stats. Terrible intelligence. Health is trash. I guess power and defense are alright.
Power creep has severely limited their viability.
Yeah, I just don't think they're good.
After expansion, the devs have expanded access to the myriapod's formerly exclusive abilities, and introduced new abilities to the game which function as counterplay options against centipedes and millipedes, allowing newer builds to more efficiently exploit their weaknesses. For example, the introduction of the beak attribute dramatically improved the bird build's matchup against centipedes.
Yeah.
As the disjointed hitbox makes the risk of a counterattack less of a concern. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first discuss the centipede. The centipede's bite is one of the strongest in its weight class.
Okay.
Enough to make some snake mains jealous. Compared against the power of a scorpion's sting, the bite has higher raw damage and armor-piercing potential, but weaker venom. By itself, this makes it one of the most formidable attacking moves in the entire arthropod faction. So with that in mind, the viability of the centipede really comes down to how reliable the rest of the centipede's game plan is at enabling the use of this vicious attack. And unfortunately, this is where the cracks start to show in this ancient build's game plan. When this move connects, the damage it deals is devastating. Landing a strike with the centipede's bite is easier said than done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You gotta be
while the
close.
centipede's base movement speed is quite solid, it lacks the surprise burst mobility that so many predators rely on. Centipedes just sort of scurry around, hoping that they'll eventually catch their player off guard. But as long as you remain vigilant, centipede attacks are about as predictable and telegraphed as they come. Centipedes have pretty low stealth and make no attempts to conceal themselves as they approach a target. So as long as your character's passive perception is halfway decent, you should have plenty of opportunity to react and escape before they get
quick time event.
range. Their poor vision also undermines their ability to pursue prey as they flee, even though they easily have the speed to chase them down. The only mistake players commonly make is attempting to...
Dang, that's crazy. Centipedes were first, and like they're the worst build. Not the worst build. I don't think they're worse than frogs, amphibians, I guess, but they're not good.
To stand their ground and fight them off, rather than taking the easy way out and fleeing before they can deal any damage. In addition to their lack of ability to ambush, centipedes also have such a low intelligence stat that fairly rudimentary stealth tactics,
let me make sure I'm still recording, because if I'm not, I will be mad.
Are highly effective against them, and can cause an aggressive centipede to completely miss their opportunity to attack as they run right past you. It's worth noting that one subclass of centipedes does have the compound eyes perk, and also sports an even higher base movement speed.
But is it really worth it though?
But these centipedes, called house centipedes, have much lower damage output and defense stats.
Yeah,
and mostly just prey on low-tier insects like silverfish and crickets.
Yeah,
even
nah,
in their own niche of
that's not getting the job done.
Centipedes have been power crept by the Solifugid, also known as the sun spider or camel spider. which is significantly faster on foot, and although it isn't venomous, the raw damage this thing can put out absolutely shreds through anything caught in its path. The sun spider definitely deserves its own video though, so I'll save further analysis for later. Switching over to millipedes, things still aren't great, but they do fare a bit better.
How are millipedes better?
Attacks, there's no denying that. Few builds in the game are better equipped to tank a ton of hits from an onslaught of attackers. However, the millipede's main method of deterring predators, its toxin, is pretty underwhelming. It doesn't deal damage quick enough to really deter persistent predators, at least within the insect faction. Most arthropods have solid poison resistance stats, so these types of toxins tend to really only make a difference against bird, amphibian, and rodent mains. If millipedes could spec into a more potent chemical defense, similar to the bombardier beetle, they might be a bit more dangerous to attack. But as it stands, assuming you can handle a small amount of poison damage, it can be worth it.
But see, like, there's no way you can get out of this situation. You know what I mean? It's like you curl into a ball for what? To die slower? I don't know.
Continue attacking and fishing for a crit, because even
I don't really get that.
Isn't completely invincible.
Yeah.
This weakness at least doesn't impede their primary objective, as even though they have just as terrible of eyesight as centipedes, or potentially even worse in the case of some, this doesn't stop them from easily finding the moss and detritus that they need to live on. In addition, some millipedes do opt for a different
Okay, now that's kind of cool.
With barbed bristles that are highly effective at deterring ants. This is less effective against birds and rodents, but much better against other arthropods. So while both have counterplay, millipedes have options when it comes to adapting to their local meta. One major area I think both centipedes and millipedes could improve in is making better use of their abundance of legs. Centipedes have only 2 modified pairs of limbs, their front legs, which have been modified into fangs, and their back legs, which have been modified into antennae. That still leaves several dozen other legs that they could probably
Yeah,
afford
that's
to convert
true.
into
Yeah,
more
you
useful
can
appendages.
have at
Having
least
similar
like,
jaw-like legs on their back end would synergize well with their auto-mimicry ability,
yeah,
and make it so that there's no end you could attack safely.
yeah.
And for the millipede, although they aren't as combat-focused, I think they would still benefit from speccing into some other utility options, like for example, fossorial legs to allow them to dig underground.
Yeah,
They have a lot of
millipedes
options,
can't
but right
dig.
now, I genuinely think that myriapods are barely managing to do with dozens of legs what most arthropods do with only a few.
Right.
Ultimately, I do think both builds have been massively power crept and cannot justify putting them any higher than the low tiers.
I agree. Cause there's no way. I mean, y'all get credit for being the first one centipede mains, but let's be honest.
Terrifying as the centipede may be, I actually think it fares even worse than the scorpion, given how simple and easily countered its game plan is once you know the matchup. They're going firmly in F tier. Millipedes do fare better for sure, as their tanky, toxic defensive strategy is tricky to overcome. But with the right strategy or with a significant size advantage, millipedes present very little challenge. In addition, poisonous millipedes suffer from their own success in that some higher intelligence builds, like lemurs and monkeys, actually deliberately trigger their toxic defense ability and then rub
they
the
be
toxin
getting
in
high
fur
off the
to gain a
millipedes.
temporary bug repellent buff, before either discarding or eating the millipede. So, while I think you could definitely make the argument that they at least make it out of F tier and belong in D tier, I don't think they belong any higher than that.
Dang,
Whether you want to
centipedes.
play as a fast-moving damage dealer or a slow, toxic tank, there are much better options available to you than centipedes or millipedes.
I agree.
Myriapods simply have too many gaps in their defense.
Yeah,
both
and not
in their
enough
physical
power.
armor and their game plan overall. You can be as careful as possible, but if your defenses have obvious exploits, you'll always be vulnerable. This is true not just for survival in the wilderness, but also for your personal data online.
Okay, we're not gonna get that. I see what you do with those ads, man. But yeah, man. I'm sorry. I'm a little tired, but I'm gonna try to react to some more videos today. But yeah, man. As always, till next time. Y'all be safe out here. I'm out.